the quaintness. We are quaint. And we are on the air, Michael. Good
I feel
morning, Michael Knight, in Pasadena,
good
California, on a Friday morning. How are you, Pally?
and a Freaky Friday. Good morning to you, New York, Vinnie, and Seattle, Washington. It's good to see you again. It's nice to have a show, but it's even more particularly interesting to me when it becomes quaint now and then.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a quaint little show, and I don't, I always think that it's the kind of the Cracker Barrel. We're sitting around the Cracker Barrel, and
Now,
we
just
don't
just
have.
just ask the question about the Cracker Barrel. Is there such a thing? The crackers come in barrels because that seems to be a terrible way to pack them.
I believe so. I believe that the bulk way you would buy crackers in the 30s or the 40s, maybe even the 20s, would be in a barrel.
And when
They
the
had to do
when the
something with all
crackers
those barrels that
when
they
the
weren't
crackers
using for liquor.
yeah, when the crackers show up, people sit around the barrel, talk about them.
People sit around the barrel and they talk about what they're going to talk about. They talk about the president. They talk about it's like talk radio with five people.
Talk radio poisoned the mind of one of my neighbors. I rode up in the elevator with him yesterday, and he cautioned me, saying, "5 families are taking over the state of California: the Pelosi's, the Newsoms, the da 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 da." He had just heard this, and he had memorized all the names. He just talk radio just poisoned his mind, and he had to tell somebody, so he told me on the ride up in the elevator. And I was going to say, please don't talk that kind of shit around me. You're out of your mind, and you should be embarrassed for yourself to talk that way in public. But I just said, hmm,
Yeah,
fascinating.
that's a tough one, especially when it's somebody you know. Although I always am stupid enough to ask the question, well, how?
How are they going to take over?
Yeah, I mean, I
They're
always
all they're working together. They're tied together. It's all a conspiracy. It's probably already done. We have to leave now. Grab your children and your money and let's go. Where? Texas, where a man can be free, but a woman can't, and a child
yeah.
can't, and a book can't, and a writer can't, and a songwriter can't, and anybody who expresses themselves openly can't. Let's go there.
It's a poisoning of the mind. I mean, we really have kind of become the Church of the Poisoned Mind, which was the song that was so popular for Culture Club back in the '80s. And most people took that song as tongue in cheek, but if you really listen to it,
Not
uh, we
anymore.
are we are living in the church in the era of the Church of the Poisoned Mind. There are people that are will believe anything.
And what do you want to do now that you've been elected to Congress? What we want to do is destroy society. I thought that's why you sent us here. We intend to stop the Social Security checks. We intend to stop the net that keeps us all Americans. We intend to destroy the Justice Department. We intend to destroy the FBI. We're going to take on the Pentagon and execute the generals. You're going to love this country when we're done with it, but we're not done with it yet.
Now, Mikey, you're a little older than me, so you maybe you remember this better than I do. I tend to look at the hippie yippie generation of people who wanted to take over the country and bring flower power to everybody and teach everybody peace, love, and understanding. Um, it never seemed like it. Now, maybe it was behind the scenes. Maybe it was manipulative, and maybe it was just as power hungry people, just as many bad actors there as there are here. But what was the? I keep trying to say to myself, why was I for it then and against it now? Why did I look at people like Abby Hoffman and the Berrigan brothers and all of those people as good people who were concerned for their country? And now here we are, 50 years later, and I look at the Matt Gateses and I look at these people, these types of people, and I say to myself, these people give a damn less about their country. They don't care about their country. They care about themselves. Is that the
They care.
difference? Why?
They
Why
care
am I?
about. Well, first of all, Flower Power and Abby Hoffman and the American brothers were not the same, and were not equal. One was love and peace and understanding that you talked about, but the other one was off the man, don't trust anybody over 30, destroy the military industrial complex.
Right.
There was a lot of unthought revolution that was discussed that had nothing to do with peace, love, understanding, power, ecology, and the future of one world. So the two are not the same, and the two were never reconciled. The fact that they wore out their ideas, as interesting and as fashionable as they were, so quickly is a bit of a mystery. But I think it was discovered that peace, love, and understanding only goes so far. There are certain needs to be met by society. What about safety? What about medical? What about
Right.
the sustained safety of the food supply? There was a number of things that had to be considered that weren't always thought out by the hippies. But the hippies win. The hippies' attitude toward war wins. The hippies' attitude toward ecology wins. The hippies' attitude toward safety and health and the food that we consume, that wins every time. The hippies' idea about a new medical approach to some medical problems, certainly not to all of them, that wins. That's a factor. That's a fact of our society. Now, is it embraced by the ex-LAPD cops living in Idaho? No, it is not. They're far more interested in listening to talk radio and telling me in the elevator that 5 families are going to take over the state of California. They don't say when, they don't say how, they're just saying it's happening. And that's enough for talk radio. No facts, no basis, no extrapolation.
Yeah. Or the Republican Party these days, for that matter.
Well, no, that's more about the immediate destruction of society as we know it, including the FBI, including the Defense Department, including the Justice Department, including their own jobs. But they want to be in place. They want to hold a seat during the chaos because that's where the profit comes. That's where the opportunity arises. That's where they get their gold. And then that's when they say, "I'm all right, Jack," as they say in the business. What your problems are no concern of mine. I'm not here representing you anymore. I'm here representing me. I'm here taking advantage of this opportunity. This moment of the chaos must be transformed into profit. Good old American idea.
And that's what capitalism.
That's what these people are based on. That's what their future looks like to them. A great opportunity for them because they held office when it all came down.
Yeah, it's just a disturbing thing that you try. I try to reconcile, where we were then. One of my great thoughts, or I don't know if we call them great thoughts, but one of my problems with my life as I get to this end of it as opposed to the other end, is that everything we thought at the other end of it, the beginning of it, the things that we thought we were going to change and make a better place have all just gone, not all, but most of them have gone belly up. I mean,
and if you wait around long enough, you'll find yourself previously against the FBI, now aligned with it. Previously against the Defense Department, now aligned with it. Previously
exactly.
Now we're defending the generals.
Exactly. I mean, in 1968, if somebody would have said they wanted to kill Westmoreland, we would have had a party.
Don't stop for my account.
Yeah, I don't want to know, but I'm not going to stop you. Now we have this bumbling slapdick that openly threatens General Milley in the media, unobstructed, unfettered, and
with no
consequences to the general's defense.
No consequences for saying something like that. He should face death. Well, who wants to second me on that? With my silence, I will second you.
Your son will second you, and your daughter will second you, and your other idiot son will second you. Uday and Kusei will second you.
Oh, they all
Esmeralda over there will third you. And when Barron turns 18, he'll fourth you.
They better get their suits out of the building because the receiver's going to start selling everything.
Yeah, you better grab your toys, kid. Put them somewhere where they can't find them. Because they're going to take your game box.
They're going to take the table it's sitting on and sell that.
I mean, it really is a shame that we have gotten to that point where, on a beautiful day in America, a day that at least in this part of the country, I know New York is having their problems back there, but I mean, it's a day we should be thinking about all the good stuff we have and all the great things that we have, and we have an abundance of them. But yet, we're tagged with this thought of, um, if this guy goes away, if this guy moves, if this guy doesn't stand up for the country or for what they believe in, the whole thing could wash down. If too many Matt Gateses get into power, with the whole idea of what we're doing here could just go right down the toilet.
And they found the off switch. They found the off switch not long ago, and this weekend they're going to use it. They're going to turn off the government.
Yeah.
And see how we like it that way. They're going to show us what their idea of chaos is all going to be like. No government, just people in government drawing a check that they will be paid. They'll all be paid, but the people in Social Security will not.
Right, which is going to cause one of them things.
It's going to cause a whirlpool of
come along every once in a while, which is, these people in Philadelphia are looting. Maybe I ought to take my tractor down to the general store and hook it up to the door of the Sears. Well, I guess there's no Sears anymore. The service merchandise store or whatever.
Drive over the Cracker Barrel.
And squeeze the crackers out and have everybody come down and pick up a handful until we could eat. I mean, part of the whole thing is that you're supposed to be able to have faith in your government. Faith that when the government writes out a check, that the check you're going to be able to cash it.
Now you got a government that can't write checks.
Right. Faith that if a congressman or a mayor or somebody says that they're going to do something, that they're going to do it. That it's going to get done. And I know that politicians lie, and I learned that lesson a long time ago, but good God, we're just eroding to a point where yesterday the Congress of the United States, the House of Representatives portion of the Congress of the United States, decided that it was more important for everybody to get on camera at a hearing that had no substance to it whatsoever about impeaching a president that probably hasn't done anything impeachable, as opposed to
it's a sideshow.
Sitting in a room and saying, we can't let this happen on Saturday night.
That's not their central motivation, Vin, as you know. Their central motivation is make this happen. Turn off the government and leave it off. Let America find out what it's like to be without it. They won't need it. They won't let us turn it back on. We won't need the Capitol anymore. We won't need Washington, D.C. We won't need these buildings. We won't need the government employees. We won't need the army. We won't need federal police. We won't need missiles. We won't need guns. We won't need to help anybody. We'll be helpless, and no one will help us. They're going to come. It's like the guy who busts out jewelry stores. They're going to just come and take the tables and the display cases. That's what will be left. And the Republicans call that progress. The Republicans call that the future. The Republicans call that freedom. This is what these mealy-mouthed, midget-brained sons of bitches have come to represent. And they should be wiped off the face of the earth. They should be wiped away from Washington. They should be cleansed from our political system, because they are the poison. They're the belladonna. They're the awful aspect. They're the bad dream you never had. And it's all right before you. Embrace Marguerite Taylor Greene. What do you get? You get a frog.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with if that's what you believe. If that's what okay, you believe that, and but take care of the business of keeping the government running.
Not capable.
If you want to impeach the president, you think you got something to impeach the president. I think it's bull, but maybe you got something. Show me. But you know what? First, First, get in the room with whoever you got to get in the room with and keep the government working.
The funny thing is, Ben, they won't even get in the room together. They won't suffer each other's presence. And these are the Republicans we're talking about. Forget the Democrats.
It really is. It just always seemed that these different factions, when it came down to helping the country, always seemed to be able to put those differences aside and make things work. There
That's
wasn't even during the Vietnam War, there wasn't people who said, well, I don't like the war, so we shouldn't pay soldiers. They got together, they signed the bills, they paid the soldiers, and then slowly they figured it out. There weren't people who said that, well, I don't like electric cars, so I'm not going to look at anything that has to do with a highway.
or
They got in
electricity.
the room, they said, okay, let's figure out how we make this happen. But it seems like we've lost the ability to make anything happen unless it's getting on social media.
Unless it's something bad. We cannot stand in the way of something awful happening. And we are helpless to make something reasonable and helpful happen. Those are the people who now represent us. They represent that base that we keep talking about, the cult base, who believe that Mussolini and John F. Kennedy were related and that are still alive and that they're all coming back to help us. But
And they're waiting in Dealey Plaza for them to show up.
They're going to wait for them there because they have to ascend to earth to join Donald Trump in ruling in God's name.
It is, I always like to look at these things and say, well, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? I was watching an interview this morning with some former congresswoman who said that she was talking to Dianne Feinstein, who passed away yesterday at 90 years old, senator from California, former San Francisco mayor, former San Francisco council, board of supervisors. And she said that yesterday, Feinstein was asking her, how do we fix this? She was inquisitive enough to want to know, how do we fix it? Now, I'm no great, supporter of Dianne Feinstein, but as you go back and you look at what she was able to do in her career, she, at the very least, she seemed to be able to work with people to try to come up with things that would appease this one and help this one and move the general well-being of the country along.
She was always well thought of by the Republicans.
Yeah,
except when she got to the gun legislation, that's when they turned on her.
Right, but they turn on anybody for that. If Jesus Christ was elected a congressperson and he got in there and wanted to do an anti-gun bill, they'd be knocking him down too.
They'd say, shoot him down.
So, these people are just mentally ill.
Well, think of the mental position of the people who are standing by with glee, waiting for the government to shut down Saturday at midnight. What makes them happy? Misery makes them happy. You know anybody like that?
It seems so, yes. It seems that the more miserable I can make you, the better I'm going to feel about myself.
Much better about myself. I'm a happy camper.
Most bullies that I met growing up in schoolyards and stuff like that, street corners, that was their exact MO. The worse I can make you feel, the better I feel.
Your misery is my happiness.
Exactly. And my misery loves company.
Yeah.
And my misery will make me feel better when I'm joined in it, not just by me, but by a group of people that can tell me I'm great all the time.
Well, now imagine the bullies all get elected in the Republican Party and their misery is collective. and their intent is darker than ever. And their ideas are to destroy what is there. They're not going to drain the swamp. They just want the swamp to be right back the way it was before anybody ever lived there.
Right. They just want their people in the swamp.
No capital, no statues, no streets, no buildings.
They want the people that they adore to be in the swamp. They want the people that they can work with, that they can craft the country in their image. I mean, what the hell does a guy like Tommy Tuberville even have any way of being in Congress? I
He's
mean, when
got
I
a
look back
plan.
at
He's got
I
an
look back
interesting
at
plan
other
that he's going to bring back slavery, and this is something that a lot of people are poo-pooing. But he said, "Wait, we have the slaves. We're just paying them. Let's stop paying them and let's own them. This is a good idea, and it's a good idea whose time has come. It solves the hunger problem because some people actually feed their slaves. Not everybody. It's true. Some people are more cruel. But if you feed your slave, you can get some work out of them, maybe not as much as you planned, but you're not paying for it. You pay for the food, that's all. That's an investment in your slave.
And after all, there are some really good slave owners. I mean, they've met some really
Great,
nice people that are slave owners.
great
They
slave
have tea
owners.
on the veranda and invite you in, make you wipe your feet before you come into the house.
The plantation, they don't have houses.
Yeah, the plantation. They make you come in and judge you not on your character, on your content of your character or the color of your skin. They judge you on they judge you on your color of your skin, but they judge you on what you can do for them, how much you have, what you have done for them.
How long they can imagine you living and working for them.
It's all about them. It's not about anybody else but them.
Now you understand Tommy Tuberville. You understand him completely. He's not a man. He's not a senator. He's a example.
Well, I understand Tuberville. What I don't understand is other decent human beings that are in the Congress, that are in the Senate, not standing up and either going to this guy and saying, you got to stop this, or going to this guy and saying, we're going to figure out a way to get you out of here if you don't fix this. This is
Imagine
not
the
about
idea.
Republican or Democrat. This is about the people who are defending our country.
But Tommy sees it differently. He sees it as a power play. This is going to put him on the map. This is going to make his career. This is going to win him a game. This is going to give him the cup. This is going to give him the old oaken bucket. And this idea that Tommy had, I'd like to talk with Benjamin Franklin and say, Ben, look at this. One idiot senator that used to be a football coach from Alabama, from Arkansas, has got the whole army tied in knots. Why the hell didn't you think of this? Where's the downside of your plan? Here's the downside of your plan. Tommy Tuberville, one cracker idiot, has got the whole thing shut down. And you never thought of this? You thought it was fine for one senator to be able to pull this kind of crap? Where was your design? Where was your fail-safe? Where was your guardrail? Where was your plan?
It seems like that, and it seems like that he's played it into this. We're forgetting it now because there's so much other stuff, and he's right. We paid attention to it for a week. He was on every talk show for a week. He was, getting his 15 minutes of fame. And now it's gone away. The problem is still there. His ban is still in. But we're on to the news. The media is on to shut down the government. The news is on to, several other things that are going on. As long as you have Trump on, going, there's always going to be, you can count on there being a distraction in 48 hours.
And that's the case that we have with Trump going to court. You try to keep his court cases in focus about which one we're talking about. You're talking about Trump and his cases, but which one are you talking about now? Well, that one where he had the thing where he asked for a change of venue. Yeah, I sort of remember that one where the judge said that he accused the judge of saying something that the judge didn't say. That I thought was an interesting idea. We want you to recuse yourself because you said this. I never said that. No one ever said it. No one ever wrote it. No one ever uttered it. Just you. You said it. Oh, was that us? Yep, that was you. And I do not recuse myself. Well, you pointed at the defendant and you made a funny move with your hand. No, no one did that either. Did you look at him weirdly? No, no one did that. Did you make him wear a red tie every day? No, that was his idea.
No, yeah. I mean, it's almost unbelievable that there is this that we're so. I always call it distracted by shiny objects. You just march the next shiny object in front of us.
I want to know what's going to happen with the gag order that Jack Smith asked for. There's been no ruling on that for days now. That's the kind of ruling that comes down on a Friday, Ben.
Yeah, it's a Friday night, 8:00, 11:00 at New York time.
Yeah,
I think, Michael, I'm not sure of this. I don't have any inside information, but it almost seems to me like there is a reluctance to throw Donald Trump in jail because of the
evil
civil unrest it might cause. Now, maybe, people are just going to say, this guy's an idiot. There's going to be 6 guys marching down Main Street, protesting Donald Trump being in jail, and that's about it.
I think that might be right.
I hope that's the case.
I'm willing to find out. I don't think
I hope that's the case, but yeah, I'm willing. At this point, there's nothing you can do. He feels invulnerable. He feels like he can do anything he wants.
And has said as much.
And get away with it. And it astounds me that anybody could look at this guy and say, we want him as the president of the United States. This is who we want to run the country. The freaking guy can't run a building without telling lies.
And the entire structure of his business for the last 30 years has been fraud.
He is America's biggest huckster.
Yep.
And
he puts Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey to shame.
Oh, I'm sure that they're looking at this from wherever they are and going, "Why didn't we think of this?
We could have had more than a circus. We could have.
We wouldn't have had fooling around with those smelly elephants all the time.
We wouldn't have needed elephants.
We could. There's tons of horse crap that we didn't have to shovel, and elephant crap that we didn't have to shovel if we just would have thought about things like this guy thinks about them."
I was on the air when Dianne Feinstein took office on the Harvey Milk Day. Yeah. I remember KTIM, and Vicki Cunningham was the news director, and she was reporting it, and we were waiting for the results of what the shooting had produced. We didn't know. We knew there had been a shooting, but we didn't know who was alive and who was dead. As it turned out, everyone was dead except for Harvey Milk, who got out of the building somehow, the idiot, and got away on the Twinkie defense.
You mean Dan White?
Dan White. Oh, that's right. Harvey Milk was killed.
Yeah, Harvey Milk was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, her career will certainly have make a movie of some kind. Matter of fact, I don't know that you could pack everything that happened to Dianne Feinstein in her career in a movie and have people actually believe it.
She had a long ride, and the interesting thing about it is, until the very end, her reputation was stellar.
Yeah, and it is sad that I'm not sad for her. I'm sad for the people that went after her. I'm sad for the people that where a guy like Strom Thurmond was allowed to basically decompose in his seat, and nobody said anything. Yet Dianne Feinstein, everybody was looking to kick her down the hall and get rid of her.
Well,
And
she stayed too long. That's a fact.
yeah, she may have, but I don't know. It's just that if it's a guy, we look at them and they're and they're wet and they don't have all the facilities, and this well, he's just an old doddering fool, and his staff will take care of him, and and he's a racist, so we should. But if it was when it was Dianne Feinstein's time,
out you go.
Let's kick it down the curb. Let's get rid of her. I don't disagree that she stayed too long, longer than she should have.
Now, does Gavin Newsom have to appoint a representative to take her seat until the election?
Right, because the primary is going. He's going to have to find somebody, a woman of color, is what they are saying. Which I don't like the whole idea of somebody pointing saying, "Well, we're going to just find you." I mean, I think that feeds into what these Trump idiots like to say. Well, a white guy doesn't have a chance anymore. I think it feeds into it. You ought to just do it and not advertise it. But be that as it may, that person will fill out the rest of her term, which I think will be in 2024.
Right.
She was up. And then whoever gets elected in the new
it'll either be Adam Schiff or Adam Schiff or Katie Porter seem to be in the lead, although Katie Porter does not have much of a chance, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Adam Schiff's if he wants it.
No, he wants it. I get a lot of mail from him.
I don't know who they're pushing out on the Republican side.
Chip Chiggerman wants the nod, but he just doesn't have the gun.
I'm sure Larry Elder has probably got his name in there somewhere.
He's running for president.
He's running for everything.
He's running for president, as it turns out.
Well, can he run for president and senator at the same time, or is there a law that says you can only run for one thing at one time?
Larry Elder doesn't really care about the laws. He's more interested in telling people that 5 families are going to take over California, and the Pelosi family is one of them.
Well, listen, I think the Pelosi family is well-heeled to take over California if they want to.
They're supposed to intermarry with other powerful Democrats and just take over the state. I can't say when that's going to happen. I'll have to tune into Hate Radio tomorrow and find out for you.
I'll have to call. I'll do better. I'll call up my friend Alexandra Pelosi and see if she can enlighten me. If she's going to be the one that's going to take, she'll probably just document it. She's a filmmaker, so she'll document it. But the other daughter was chairman of the Democratic Party, wasn't she? And now the Pelosi has said that she's going to run again. Although I don't know if this is going to change her mind about that. Pelosi and
Feinstein. Pretty hard to turn your back on the Washington mess that's going on right now and say, I'm done.
Well, I don't know, Michael. Maybe it's time for new blood. Maybe it's time.
The problem with new blood is it takes a while to learn the ropes the way Pelosi knows them. She doesn't know the ropes. And Feinstein was pretty bright about that too, especially the way she warred with the senators.
And Pelosi is a masterful tactician, politician. And, the one thing that I'm so impressed about her, I mean, I've known her for a long time, as you have, but the one thing that I'm so impressed about her with is her knowledge of the Constitution, her knowledge of American history, her knowledge of events that got us to where we are today.
Because you have to know it to apply it every day.
Well, yeah, but do you? I mean, you got Tuberville, who couldn't tell you the 3 branches of government.
There's 3, said Tommy.
Yeah, offense, defense, and special teams.
There you go.
Um, so evidently you can get in there without knowing it.
And
Um,
you can make a mess with your recalcitrance.
well, you just have to figure out who to take money from quickly, and they'll educate you. They'll write the bills for you. They'll do whatever they need to do to keep you under their thumb.
Tommy's going to retire in ignominy.
Uh, again, this is another stain in our underpants from Donald Trump.
Yep. He opened the door to the demons. He
This
opened
is uh,
Pandora's box.
this is another screech mark. Imagine if you had him and Herschel Walker in the
Oh,
Senate at the
no.
same time.
Where is Herschel? He's in his chair somewhere?
He's probably chasing some woman somewhere around something.
Chasing her around. What were you chasing her around? I don't know. Something in the room. Something.
Well, there was a desk, and there was a chair, and there was some other stuff, and that's what I chased her around.
They had, was it rented office of furniture or was it period pieces? Don't really
Oh,
know.
with believe you me, with Herschel, I bet you it was period pieces that he wouldn't sit on it for a week and a month. Um,
By the way, I met Dianne Feinstein. She was a guest on a show that I did at an unnamed radio station in San Francisco. And I had booked her because my father-in-law, Lloyd Pfluger, Kristen's father, was in city government, and he knew Dianne Feinstein and had great respect for her, although he was a Republican and she was a Democrat.
all right.
So with you dropping his name, I got her booked for the show when she was mayor of San Francisco. That was a coup.
Nice. I didn't know her well, like some people. I knew her through. I met her at a where did I meet at the '84 Democratic Convention.
At,
When I
at,
was there
at the
at the
Moscone.
Moscone Center, yeah, and actually people forget that it was the Moscone Center, but it was also out on the piers. They had a bunch of functions that were going on and shuttles that were going back and forth, and I went to this one function that was down at the end of Broadway at that whatever that pier is down there, and she was there. All of a sudden, I was standing next to her, and I was talking. Hey, how you doing? And I live out in on Sanchez. Talking to her, and but obviously knew her career well because of the whole thing that had happened with Dan White and all of that, and her taking over as mayor from George Moscone when he was killed, and then of course living in San Francisco. The first, I forget how many years it was, 6 years, 8 years. She was the mayor of San Francisco
Yeah.
that I was there, and I remember, you always remember things like.
In those days, you couldn't take a poop on the sidewalk in front of the ferry building and get away with it. Now you
Right,
can.
right. San Francisco had an order to it. It had, it had a certain. The cops were much more effective. They ran things a little bit more. Some of them ran them into the ground. Some of
It
them
was, it
ran
was pre
some people out of town.
it was pre.com.
But yeah, but it was an exciting and great middle class place to live.
No
The city
longer
had.
no longer that way.
Yeah, the city had neighborhoods, and all of the neighborhoods were still distinct. If you were out in the Sunset, you were probably an Irishman,
And you never saw the sun and never missed it.
right? If you were in the Castro, you were probably gay.
Better
If
weather,
Yeah, you had nicer weather. If you were in the Mission, you were probably Spanish.
best weather,
If you were in the Haight, you were an ex-hippie
or
that
a lover of Victorian
did a
architecture.
smart thing and bought their house when it was $11,000.
And if you were in the marina, you were wealthy.
If you're in Marina, you were wealthy. You lived by Joe DiMaggio. And the other thing, well, this was Cow Hollow and the marina. It was the singles place to be.
Yeah, Union Street.
Union Street and Fillmore and What were the four corners there? Remember the bars on the four corners? The Balboa Cafe was on one corner.
Balboa was down by the harbor.
And then there was
No, that was the Trieste. No, wait.
the Balboa was on one of the. There was four corners. It was Fillmore and like a block south, about a block north of Union, maybe 2 blocks, I forget. But you had, those were the days of Henry Africa's and Lord Jim's and the Balboa and all of those singles places.
And the Wash Bag in North
The
Beach.
Wash Bag, yes. Ed Moose.
I met Ed Moose. He was a great guy.
Ed Moose at the Wash Bag. And it was the time when you picked up the Chronicle every morning and you didn't read the front page. You went right to the Macy's ad, which right next to it resided Herb Cain's column.
Yep.
And Herb Cain probably made Dianne Feinstein in local politics as much as anybody else.
His endorsement was valuable.
It was very valuable to any politician.
Or any artist of any sort.
Any business, anything that you wanted to get people to know about. If you could get it in Herb's column, it was always amazing because everybody said, "Oh, I don't read that thing," and everybody read it.
Everybody read it. Even Ed Moose read it because he was in it.
I remember we got a memo at the city. And I don't know if you'll even remember this, but we got a memo at the city that basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase it. I think I actually still have the memo because it was one of the first memos I got when I was actually started working on the air. And it had something to do with don't read Herb Cain's column on your show. If anybody who is interested has read it already. Because people always used to say, well, Herb Cain said that. And I remember Kate and Tom were don't use his column on the show. Try to get yourself in there, but don't use the column on the show. Because it was the best free advertising you could get in San Francisco.
It was quite a hit.
And
so influential.
Yeah, I still think that he had probably the most to do with getting her reelected once she had gotten into that position through the death of Moscone. That when she had to get reelected, and then elected again, and then started taking off and went for senator. I think that Payne was the guy who really made her. In many ways. I mean, she was obviously a smart politician.
And Herb Cain worked 6 days a week.
Yep.
Till the end.
Yeah, he had that column on Sunday, and it usually was about one thing, which probably was written by his assistant Carol more than anything else.
I don't know about that.
But then all the 3 dot stuff would be, the other 5 days a week, Monday to Friday.
And people sent tips to him, my God.
Oh, my God. You always called Herb's office with a tip because you knew that if he got it, if he did something with it, he'd put your name in it if you want it.
Yes. That's the way he wrote
it. To get your name in Herb Cain's column was an achievement. And considering all of this, considering he had to crank out a column 5 days, a 3 dot column 5 days a week, and he managed to leave people out of it.
Yeah.
Either A, how much there was going on in San Francisco, or B, the plethora of stuff he had to choose from.
It's hard to believe that someone didn't take that job, that mantle, that responsibility. But you have to know everybody before you can write about everybody, and he knew everybody.
He knew, he had his favorites. He had his people he leaned on.
Strange
like Di-Fi. He gave her that name, Di-Fi. Wilkes Bashford.
Strange to Jim.
Strange to Jim. Yeah, he had 5 or 6 regulars,
Willie.
maybe more. He was always writing about what's that restaurant that was down on. Oh man, the old guard restaurant that was they just recently closed, I think. Across from the Irish bar on, what was it? Not Sansom, but one over from Sansom. It was right by KRQR.
Can't
I
think.
can't remember the name of it, but there was that something cafe. I forget what it was, where everybody went, and he was always in that place.
You can't get a table. Why? Everybody's here.
Everybody's here. Sorry, you'll have to stand outside and gossip. We'll just go stand by the little guy there with the bald head. Make sure you're within earshot of him. It was great times in San Francisco, man. It was when it was a great city.
And I blame the tech revolution on part of this because people made financial decisions that weren't sound on
Yeah.
downtown real estate, which killed downtown. Downtown still isn't returned. They're trying to make everybody go back to work. No, you can't work from home.
No, nobody wants to go back to work because they all have the perception that if you go downtown, you're going to get killed.
Well, if you go downtown, your car will be seen to within the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, broken into, you'll get killed.
There was
I mean,
nothing. There was nothing in my car. No, but your car was parked in a dangerous neighborhood. It was in the business district. That's what I mean.
yeah, and at the very least, you're going to have to run the gauntlet of homeless people.
You got to step over people to get into your building.
And nobody wants to. I mean, my sister still works downtown, and she tells me stories all the time of she walks 2 blocks from the garage up. I think is it Front Street she's on? I forget what street it is now. But she walks 2 blocks, and in 2 blocks, she's fighting off 6 homeless people. She goes into Starbucks to get her coffee, and she's fighting off homeless people in there.
There's only 5,000 homeless in San Francisco. This is not an insurmountable problem.
They're very visible homeless people, though.
They're visible. They're drug addicted. They're aggressive. They're comfortable.
Well, I wish I knew how to solve the problem, because if there's a problem that somehow, some way is going to have to get solved, I don't know that the person's been born yet with the brains to solve it.
Well, if you only have to find a resting place for 5,000 people in San Francisco, you can do that in one building.
Yeah,
Now,
it should be a no-brainer, right? But for whatever reason,
nobody's brained it.
Nobody has come up with the right solution. One that's acceptable to the homeless advocates, to the homeless people, all of the different things that you have to appease to do it. And that was one thing that I know that Feinstein. I mean, I read somewhere at some point years ago that she was her biggest regret as mayor of San Francisco, that she couldn't seem to reach that population.
Because there's no prosecution for in-store robberies in San Francisco, and the homeless are doing it on a daily basis. Both Nordstrom and Target have recently closed their stores in downtown, and that's it. No more for us.
Oh yeah, you go down Market Street, it's a ghost town.
The business district is a ghost town.
Yeah, all those stores that used to be down there on Geary, just going up off of Market, and all of those places up to Union Square and everything. It's nothing there. You could open up a slot car track.
Roller derby.
You could put another new stadium down there because people aren't coming back. Why do they need to put up with that? People aren't going down there. And the only people that are there are homeless people, and they're not selling them anything. or the people that have to work there.
Who are working despite the conditions.
I mean, I think at some point you just say, like those businesses have, thank you very
Goodbye.
much. We appreciate it.
They're gone.
But Mr. Bashford is going to take his store out to Walnut Creek.
Way out.
And, FAO Schwartz can do just as well out in Danville as they can
Yeah.
in downtown San Francisco, because nobody wants to come into the city anymore. You have to fight traffic to get in. You have to pay exorbitant parking fees when you get in there. If you're going to park in a lot, you're going to park on the street, you're going to get your car towed.
Your car's not safe.
Your car's not safe. You're going to have to step over homeless people, step in piles of crap. And for what?
What's not to like? Yeah.
I mean, San Francisco isn't that attractive. There's nothing here now that I can't get anywhere else.
It looks great from a helicopter shot when the 49ers are playing 45 miles away.
Yeah, looks great from from a tourist perspective. It probably looks great because you're in a couple of days. You jump on the cable car, you go to Fisherman's Wharf, you get back on the cable car, you go back to your hotel, and you go home. You're there 3 days, so the homeless people is something that you've heard about, and now you've witnessed it.
I wanted to mention a friend of mine who died. Terry Kirkman was a neighbor and a musician and a member of the association.
Yeah.
And very active in the sober world of AA. And I met him one day, not having any idea who he was. I mean, I knew who Terry Kirkman was. I didn't know I was meeting Terry Kirkman.
Right.
And halfway through the conversation, he's talking about this, that, and the other thing. I said, wait a minute. I know who you are. And we didn't do a lot of music together because he wanted to leave that life behind.
Yeah.
Very, very much behind him. He put it behind him and he wanted to leave it behind him. But he told a lot of great stories about it, including one where Terry was living very much a part of during the association years, where they spent 300 days on the road every year, which is another way to get sick of show business.
Quickly, yes.
And he came home and his mother was visiting, and Richard Pryor, who was a neighbor, was in the house, and he and his mother were discussing Terry's career and his career arc. And Richard was letting him know that his mother had some good ideas that he should act on. And I reminded him of that a week before he died. And he said, I don't tell that story anymore. And that was his only comment about it. He just had put that one out of his mind. The association were on their way to Chicago in rented station wagons. And they were out in the country in a rural area before they got to the city. And they had a running water balloon battle, station wagon to station wagon. They went on for miles. And I can't remember the exact details of it, but I just wonder what it was like if you were out plowing your field and see two Pontiac station wagons go by throwing water balloons at each other, you had to roll down your window to throw the water balloon. And when you rolled down your window, you were vulnerable to an incoming water balloon.
Oh my God.
So those are the things they had fun doing. He wrote Cherish, he said, and he got home. The 11 o'clock news was on. He made a sandwich and ate it. And by the time the news was over, he had written the song. So it took him less than 30 minutes. And he stuck to that story.
And that song was probably number one on more end of the year radio station surveys.
Yeah.
In 67, I believe Cherish was 66. But that truly was, no, it was 66 because 67 was Ballad of the Green Berets. But that was, for many, many years, the kind of ultimate love song.
Courtesy of WABC.
Yeah, well, yeah, but a lot of different, I mean, you heard that song wherever you went. That was a huge monster song.
And Terry and the band recorded one of the most performed 45s of all time, which is still, I think, in the top 10 for total plays. Never My Love.
Right. and also Along Comes Mary,
Oh yeah.
which was a song that many people banned from radio stations because they thought it was about drug culture.
Oh, become Here Comes Mary Jane.
Yeah, they thought it was, and also one of the great B sides of any song. I believe it was the B side to "Cherish,"
Or Windy.
"Requiem for the Masses,"
Yeah, Terry wrote that song.
which was to this day is still one of my favorite. I would put it in my top 25
Now
songs.
that was a song about the war.
Right, right. But
And
that song,
Enter the Young.
right? That was that song was a gripping is a gripping song. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, if you haven't listened to it, I haven't heard it, just punch it up on YouTube.
Be curious and find out what harmony is all about.
There's an actual live version of it on YouTube that is incredible. Where they I forget what show it was. They might have done, it was one of those like summer replacement, the John Gary show or something like that.
They were pretty clean cut, so they did a lot of TV, a lot of Ed Sullivan, a lot of Dean Martin, a lot of the
I saw them.
variety shows.
I saw them live. I'm going to try to think of the three other well, those three other bands. There was a 4-band bill, and it was at the Felt Forum, which is attached to Madison Square Garden. I know it was the Association, Na Na Na, the Birds,
Wow.
and crap if I can't think of the fourth group, but it was one that you would know right away.
Gary Puckett.
No, it wasn't. See, it wasn't an oldie show. It
Turtles?
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. It was kind of, it was 69. Well, I'll have to look and see if I can remember the fourth group on that bill. Something like the Blues Magoos or something like that.
Sure. Out of
Something in
Chicago.
that, in that slot. Maybe the Illusion.
Maybe
But I
Rotary
think it was
Connection.
kind of a local New York band.
The Vandals.
I think I might have been a little too early for the Vandals. But yeah, the more I think of it, the more I bet you was the Illusion. But
that was a big booking for the Illusion. They must have been open.
Yeah, fantastic. But it was just. I mean, what impressed me was it was 4 groups that had great harmonies.
Oh yes.
I mean, Shannon obviously had the harmonies with the oldies. The Birds, even though it was I think a Roger McGuinless Birds. Boy, I was too young to remember. I was young. Boy, I was not that old when I saw that show. But I remember the Association because I always keyed in on Larry Ramos.
Yeah,
was a guy somebody had left and they had brought him in as a replacement for them, and he added so much vocal to the group. It was interesting to see. Great band. Sorry for the loss of Terry. Sorry for the loss of a friend as well. Seems like it's in fashion to lose friends these days, man. I think we're at that point.
Congestive heart failure does not take any prisoners.
No, I know from experience that it doesn't. I do everything I can every day to manage mine, to control what I have, and try to make it squeeze me out because I'm not a candidate for a transplant, Michael.
Your job is to live as long as you can, and I mean that.
I'm sure going to try. Giants are out of it, huh?
Giants have a way of losing, and it's a fascinating team that I love dearly, but they can't win ball games, and that's a problem in baseball.
Yes.
What's your team like? Well, they got all the opportunity, and they got all the mental preparedness. They just can't win games. That's a problem. Because, and I quote Leo DeRocher often, winning isn't everything, but losing is nothing.
Yeah. Well,
You know
it'll
what it's
be
like. You're a
interesting.
Met fan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how everything shakes out. The Mariners, believe it or not, are still alive.
Wow.
They have, I mean, they have basically have to win out, which I don't think there's anybody that believes they can except them. Um, and they have to have a few things go right. This time last week, their destiny was in their own hands, but they
Oh
decided
God.
that they didn't want to go that route. We should mention Brooks Robinson.
What a player.
What a guy, too.
What a Hoover. What a Hoover at third base. You just good luck trying to get it by him.
Oh, he put on every game he put on was a clinic.
Yep.
I
He
mean,
was a
it was
natural. He was just a natural.
yeah, he just played that corner better than I think better than anybody else has.
I can't think of another third baseman that was so outstanding in his ability.
And also he was a nice guy. I ran into him a couple of times and ran into him when we were back there for in '97. We were back for the playoffs against Baltimore, and I ran into him and talked to him for a few minutes in the lunchroom, the media lunchroom
Right.
at Camden Yards, and he was just a great guy.
He could
You
dive to
know,
his left. He could dive to his right. He could go back. He could charge it. And if you got the ball, he was going to throw you out.
yeah, a competitor of the best degree, and
And a man who played on with champions.
right, right. I mean, you think of some of the teams he was on in the '60s and the '70s. There was just one thing that you couldn't do with him, and it was odd because it was the same with Frank Robinson. The two Robinsons, you couldn't talk about one thing.
What was that?
They never ever wanted to talk about 1969.
Hmm. Not talking about that.
Verboten. I got one of the dirtiest looks I ever got in my life from Frank Robinson when I asked him a question about it.
Never
I
do
thought
that
he was going to
again.
flat me. I mean, those guys did not want to talk about that series, man.
It wasn't business. It was personal.
It really was. I mean, when you spent a minute talking to me, it looked like it was like they still couldn't believe that they got beat by the Mets. 50 years later or 40 years later, and they couldn't. It
Still not
still,
right.
it still could. They still couldn't reconcile it in their mind that they got beat in that series. It was an amazing thing. People definitely. I don't want. It's not holding a grudge because they know they were beat. So it wasn't like it was just almost like shock.
You couldn't believe that destiny had shown its light on one team that way and kept the light on it all the way through the World Series. You're supposed to meet
You
your
couldn't
maker in
you
the
couldn't
World
get the
Series.
yeah you couldn't get the light off them. So anyway, and then we got a weekend of football. I don't even know who's wearing football, to be honest with you. I've been editing film for the last.
USC is going to play at 5,700 feet. We'll see if they can adjust themselves to the altitude when they play in Colorado.
Well, they'll have their work cut out for them to come back from that whooping, and we'll see what happens. The
Who's
Seahawks
Washington?
are.
Who are the Cougs playing?
It's not. I forget now. I forget. I didn't pull up the schedule, so excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't do that.
I didn't do
Uh,
it either.
but let me get it up here real quick.
Well, forget about that. Tell me about your show for tomorrow.
Oh, my show for tomorrow. Oh, well, we're gonna do the show at 8 o'clock, and we're gonna be talking about the event that we just had, which is highlighted electric cars and highlighted nice cars,
Run to
and we
the
will
sun.
talk about. I've driven the Lucid for the first time. So
That'll be
we'll
the
see how
show.
that. We'll have reports on that. Lucid, it's a car that's trying to compete mightily with the Tesla, and it's an incredible car in design. I really, really loved the design of this car, and yeah, it was really. So we'll be talking a lot about that. We're going to preview a Mercedes SUV, a new Mercedes SUV that's just hit the streets, and we will talk about that little Chevy pickup truck, which we will review, and we'll have our song. I don't know what the song is yet, but we'll even have our song. So
The
we'll
cartoon.
have our cartoon, and we'll see what happens. What happens there? But we will have a show at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We know that exactly what will happen from 8:01 to 8:59, and in what order it happens in, we're not
We're
100% sure.
not, no, we don't want to say. Well,
But
Vinny, have a
trust
great
me,
show. Have a great show and have a great weekend, okay, buddy?
Mikey, you too, my friend. Have a good one, and I'll check in with you on Monday morning if the Lord's willing. The creek don't rise.
I wonder where that creek is. I've been keeping an eye on it.
I think it's right at the corner of Peace, Love, and Manischewitz.
Across from the Balboa Cafe. Okay.
What a wine, baby.
What a wine. See ya.
See you, Mikey.